Thank you for that. In fact, I'm learning, and I believe the listeners are also learning the different forms of abuse. Orienting, not changing the orientation of the child to make them believe something different from what they should believe. That tells us how important sex education should be into our children. As adults, we need to educate our children very well, and we shouldn't wait till a certain time. We should start now, whatsoever their age. Look at their age and look at the best way to put it to them, because there are so many people waiting outside there to reorient your children in a way they shouldn't, and that takes us to the effect of this abuse. Some of these children tend not to know, or tend not to open up. Let me use that word. They tend not to open up, especially the male child. We have this everywhere. Girls abuse more. We hear it more than the boys aspect, and meanwhile the boys too are sexually abused. So what are the effects on these children? Is it because of the effect that the boys are keeping quiet and girls at least talking a little bit? At least it's changing over time, because the education that we are given now is making everyone to come out live to talk about it now, other than before. What are those effects it has on the child, whether a male or a female? Now, as in at that time they are being abused before they now grow up.
Okay, so a child could be forced or pressured into sexual abuse. So when I say forced or pressured, sometimes they could be lured. Now, what I talk about being forced is like somebody is taking forceful advantage of them, doing things against their will deliberately, not minding their shout, their scream, or whatsoever. Then those are being lured, like the one who comes around to show them such pornographic movies, pornographic videos, and then begin to tell them, this is what they are doing there, can we just do that? See how they touch the person, see how they touch this one, see how that one is being done. Those are forms of what? Abuse. The person is taking advantage of their innocence or their ignorance to perpetrate such evil. So when we talk about effects, any child that has been abused while growing, or even as a young person, the effect goes beyond that time, even into the future. A lot of the time we see a lot of young people doing some funny things. They begin to show some character to show us. They act out for us to understand that something is actually wrong with them. Sometimes when they act out like this, we may not really understand, and because we don't understand what they are acting, we tend to respond in another way. Take for instance, a young guy told me that while he was younger, the mom actually asked him to always stay with with a friend in a particular shop. But most times he is always crying and saying, I'm not going there, I won't go there. And the mother is like, you understand? She doesn't really understand what's happening. And most of the time, if at home they needed him to do certain things which is against his will, they never wanted to do them. Once they tell him, we will take you to so person, just because he never want to go there, he will have to comply whether he wants it or not. And the reason is this: each time he goes to that woman's shop, the woman sits down and pull his head under herself and ask him to begin to touch her and also lick her up. So it's very, very irritating to him. So such a guy is really not finding it funny. But mommy and daddy do not understand exactly what he is going through, why he is rebelling against their instructions to go to that place. So sometimes when children are being abused in such manner, they tend to be rebellious. They are angry with the adults, and because they don't seem to have the power at their hand, they don't seem to possess the power to control what is happening to them or happening at that point in time. They seem to just get angry and they are exploding. Some of them revert into themselves. They are withdrawn. They become moody. They don't want to relate with anybody. They just shut down on all social life, all forms of communication. They are just with themselves and within themselves, not relating with anyone.
That's powerful. That's great. We have to be very conscious of even the way our children react to things. I remember on the show on childhood memory, I think. I have shared a little bit of my story with my listeners, and if you missed that particular show, you can also log into our website www.jollyfm.com past shows. You can get little bit of what Mama B is talking about here. There was this particular uncle of mine then that will always want to take advantage of me, and each time he comes around to buy something, to put stuff for my parents, for my mom, and they would just say he was not going anywhere, but he would tell my mom he was going somewhere, that I should drop some those food stuff with in the house. And I'll innocently, the first time I went, the second time, and later, because I'm not even aware about all those things. I don't even know what he was doing, but all I knew was what he was doing was wrong and irritating. But my parents, despite the fact that I told them I can't go, to them they just saw it like this girl is stubborn. And she's stubborn, she's disrespectful, and so on. But I just have to obey them sometimes. But after a while, I said, Mommy, see, this uncle is lying, he's not going anywhere. When he's tired, you come and pack his things. So parents should be careful and should note, at least this particular child is not always disobedient. You should see this signal, that it is a signal for you, and that is just that effect at that moment. Because with time, this child keep to herself or himself, and it's going to really affect a lot of things around, even the way you interact at home and with friends and everyone around. These are just few of the effects now. What of in the future, when these children become adults? What are those effects this child abuse or sexual abuse will have on a person as adults?
Okay, so let me take for instance, I had an experience towards the end of the past year, and oh God, I was really like, it took me time to be able to pull myself together, because I was, at first my reaction was that of, oh my God, so angry. And a young guy of about 22 years old, I think 2022, was asking me out, and I was like, what the heck, what's happening here? It's just a young guy. I'm into printing, so he did some graphics work for me, and because I need to see his work before going there, talk about some corrections and things like that. So while he asked for my contact, my WhatsApp contact, I gave to him, and after the job has been done, I've paid him, and I'm suddenly I started seeing some crazy and funny messages on my phone, and I was like, okay. At first I took it like, okay, he seemed not to know he was chatting with me, probably sending the message to someone else. And so I had to put a call to him. Hello guy, what's happening here? He was like, oh, he's sorry, and he wasn't bold enough to talk, and I was like, okay, I hope we were chatting with. Before I know what's happening, he dropped the call, and the chat continued. I was like, what's happening here? He had enough boldness, enough courage to tell me that he would just give me the respect of an adult, but he want to date me. And I was like, are you for real? We got at the point, even as much as I was like being emotional at that point, but I had to pull myself together and start trying to like get words out of him. But my finding shows that young boys like that, they have the history of abuse because of the experiences they've had while they were young. Adults, female, abusing them, taking advantage of them. They tend to have these attractions for older people, and that's what is called gerontophilia. You understand? They just want to relate. They don't have even emotion towards young people like themselves. They tend to relate just with people adults who are much more mature, and that's one sign, one other effect of childhood abuse. The other effect you can talk about is anorexia. When a person deliberately have a compulsive behavior to avoid anything that had to do with sex. Sometimes you've heard stories of young ladies or even guys, after they are married, they're just not coming through when it comes to sex. No matter what the spouse do to get them come through to that spot, they just do everything possible to just, some ladies are just frigid. They just can't open up. They just don't want to. You know, I once read a story of a girl who was losing her marriage just because of this. You know, after the counselor had to talk with her, she had to share her experience of how her sister's husband had been abusing her as a young girl, and she grew up with that image, you know, in her mind, and she finds it difficult to really come out there to relate sexually. Another thing you can see is that sometimes people become sexually addictive. They become addictive. You know, one thing about childhood sexual abuse is this: once a child is abused, your self-esteem, your self-worth is taken away. Your real person has been stolen. And when the child feels my worth, my esteem has been taken, I'm no longer human. People that have been abused keep saying themselves like they are just a thing to be used. So for that reason, they keep giving themselves to whoever at any time with just no restriction.
So it's in two ways.
Yeah.
Either the child gives herself to anyone or keeps.
Yeah.
So
So
it's in
keeping
two ways.
themselves is a form of annoyance or anger. Keep giving themselves away is a form of I am worthless. There is nothing about me to be preserved again. Something worthwhile has been taken away from me. So I'm just a tool to be used.
That's very powerful. In fact, it's like I want to go for a break now, because hey, a lot of things are really happening these days. Imagine that that scenario you painted before you went into the effect, and a lot of guys are everywhere now. You know, taking advantage of married women.
Yeah.
Married women. He wants to just, in fact, this particular guy, he must have been doing it with no other married women.
Yes.
And just want to try it again.
I think the issue is a lot of married people or older people, women, have taken advantage of younger boys, and parents are not aware. You understand? Like, I was reading something on a particular platform yesterday of a matured woman asking another young boy to come around, and in fact, she was so blunt about it. She wanted sex. And the guy was like, stop trailing me. I don't do that. It was like, no, whatever you want, I'm going to give to you. You understand? So it's crazy. Then she said she's been starved, that her husband is not really attending to her. So she needs to take care of herself. And rather than go out with older people, she would rather take advantage of a young person. Some of those people even go as far as trying to drug these young people to have their way with them.
You see, another thing about this thing is, you know, with time they lose trust.
Yeah.
Even with time, the way you as a parent will react by the time they tell you, you know, some of these victims are not ready to open up because they don't actually trust the parents.
In the actual sense, why they don't open up most time is because they are so afraid. Most of the people who abuse them are actually taking control of them. And what I mean by that is some of them are threatening. If you dare tell anyone about this, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Like, a girl reached out to me on social media and said she needs to talk with me. So while we got talking, she told me a story of how she was being molested at the age of 7, they were about to, and somebody did that consistently for about 6 months where she lives. She has lost her parents and she's staying with a family. But it beats my imagination how a child under your care will be harassed and molested continuously for good 7 months, and you are not aware. And the person keeps telling her, if you make any attempt to say a word, I'm going to kill you. And you know, that's made her to just
really
as at the time she reached out to me, she was already suicidal. You understand? So people who have been abused, most time they don't their thinking has been twisted. You understand? So sometimes they go into as in serious depression. Their mood swing. They're always feeling that they are not worth living. Life is not worth living for them. So it's one of those things we can talk about too.
Okay, we'll be right back. Yes, let's quickly go for this short break, and we shall be giving you first Child of the Word.
Yeah. Go. I pull up her mother's eyes. She be trophy daughter. Mommy raised her. Daddy never dropped $1. Daddy ran away.